Testing, testing. Good evening. Well, good afternoon, late evening, good afternoon. Thank you all for coming. We are in competition with a storm watch, of a tornado watch, and so I dare not battle God in his element, in his fighting ring. But tonight we are in for a treat. This is the second time around, and it worked. The first time was February 18th, and we had a blizzard. I'm a Florida boy. I've never seen snow like this. I don't even like the cold. But God baptized me into a new element, and not only that, but all of us. And so we survived, and we had to cancel the first time. So I asked him again. I said, Doc, you think you can want to make it down before the semester's over? And he obliged. And so he's here today, and we are in for it. We've been hanging out a little bit, and so, before I even go further, I have to thank the invisible people who are not here that helped make this happen. Number one, Craig Fisher. I think Craig is here. I don't know where he is. He's in the back. And also Tony Young. My hat's off to them with the consistent work in trying to prepare a place. Secondly, some people may come in we had to cancel Cullen due to some issues this morning. And so we are so grateful for our university family for allowing us at the last minute to come in and use their building. And so to the leadership of this fine church, I hope I get a chance to shake all of your hands and tell you thank you from the bottom of my heart. But before we get started tonight, I want to lead us in a word of prayer. Father in heaven, we are grateful for this opportunity for saints to come together. In spite of a pandemic, in spite of a tornado watch, Father, your grace and your mercy has been upon our lives, and thank you for showing us favor. Even in times when we did not appreciate you, even in times that we didn't do what's right, your love still prevailed. And Father, we thank you for another chance. Bless our time tonight. Bless our speakers who traveled afar to be here, to share with us wisdom, to share with us love and how to love. Father, we are forever grateful. Thank you for the leadership of this university, and thank you for all who are present. We say this prayer in your son, Jesus' name. Amen. Cameron is one of my supreme student workers. I can't do nothing without Cameron. So wherever I go, Cameron goes. She's always reminding me what I need to do. And so she's going to introduce our speaker tonight.
Good evening. My name is Cameron Taylor. I'm the Senior OMA Ambassador, and I have the pleasure of introducing our first guest speaker. Dr. Billy Curl is a native of Nacogdoches, Texas. His scholastic ability and talent afforded him a seat in the graduating class from E.J. Campbell High School. In 1960, he entered Southwestern Christian College. While attending Southwestern, Dr. Curl was baptized into Christ and would soon prepare himself to translate dreams into spiritual realities. Upon graduating from Southwestern in 1962, he entered Abilene Christian University. While attending Abilene Christian, he was provided with an even greater challenge and perspective of both the spiritual and educational world. Dr. Curl graduated from ACC with a degree in speech pathology. In the midst of all of his accomplishments, his wife, Mary Davis Curl, became an eternal partner that would soon change his life for an entirety. He has been married for over 50 years and has 2 sons as well as 5 grandchildren. Dr. Curl speaks locally and nationally at numerous Christian conferences, organizations, and educational institutions. He has served and continues to serve on various boards of directors, trustees, and advisory boards for institutions and organizations. Additionally, Dr. Curl has served for over 40 years as the minister and evangelist of the Crenshaw Church of Christ in Los Angeles, California, until his retirement on December 31st in 2013. Please give a warm welcome to Dr. Billy Curl.
You got an ACU welcome. Welcome back. Welcome back. How you doing? Thank you. Thank you so much for being here with us.
The way because of the storm.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Well, you made it. You
I
made it.
made
I'm
it.
glad. We prayed you through.
Thanks.
I prayed you through.
I love it.
I prayed you through. Opening up. Number one, Nacogdoches, Texas.
Nacogdoches, Texas.
Nacogdoches, so I said it wrong.
Nacogdoches.
That's my southern drawl. So not Nacogdoches, but Nacogdoches.
Nacogdoches.
Tell me
correct.
about Nacogdoches.
Nacogdoches is a small town It's the home of Stephen F. Austin State University. Abilene Christian beat 'em.
Yeah, yeah, we did. Go Wildcats.
Yes, and I thought that was one of the greatest accomplishments. And I just went around telling all my friends that look what happened. I grew up on a farm outside of Nacogdoches. My father and mother had 12 children, and we all grew up with the mother and father, and he was a sharecropper. And so Nacogdoches is a town of about a little bit less than 30,000.
Okay.
The university is roughly same size in terms of population, maybe a lot less, but a beautiful town. I enjoyed after I left.
After you left.
I didn't realize how good it was
Wow.
until after I left. It's kind of like leaving your parents' home, get out on your own,
Right.
and you think everything is going to be great until you have to pay the bills yourself.
Yeah, yeah.
And so home looked good.
And everything is free at home.
It was free at home.
So you grew up in that. It's agriculture time. You said 12 children. What number are you?
It's kind of hard to remember that. I'm number 4 from the bottom. There's 3 that's younger than me. I had a brother, 2 brothers and a sister
Okay.
that younger than me, and I lost both of my brothers. And so there's a sister who is the only one that's younger than I am. There's still 12 of us. There's only 6 now
Okay.
that are still living.
Wow. Wow. And I recently heard, I don't know if it's the gossip or the gospel, that y'all got some land out there.
My father, early on in his life, and his father started purchasing property to live on. And his mother, who I got to know, I didn't know her that well, encouraged our family to buy their own land and live in their own homes.
Right.
And my dad and my mother built their own house that they lived in.
Wow.
And that house stayed there for at least 70 years.
Wow. Wow. So how important was ownership back then?
When you don't know any other way, you just take it for granted that this is the lifestyle
Right.
that you live in. I didn't realize how important that was until after we left and after I lost my parents. My mother and father passed away. And the good thing about it is that we kept the majority of the land. Our family still owns
Yeah. That's
the
big.
majority of the land,
That's big.
and it's really nice. And I was able to acquire from my late brother, the youngest one, who stayed home. All of us left and went separate ways, but my youngest brother, the 12th child, stayed home, except for a stint in the military. And we think that he contracted Agent Orange, but he died from colon cancer.
Right.
And I was able to acquire the land that he owned.
Wow.
And so I'm still a landowner in Texas.
Hey,
So
that's big stuff.
when I get tired of California, I can always come back home.
Now, let's talk about this journey. In those times, you grew up in Jim Crow,
I grew up before Jim Crow.
before Jim Crow.
I grew up under legal segregation.
Wow.
And when I say legal, that means the law said that there was separation.
Wow.
And I didn't realize the importance of that until after I left and saw the rest of the world and what it was all about. We became acclimated to that lifestyle.
Right, right.
Because my parents taught us how to survive.
Yeah.
And rather than mentioning that this is for us and this is for them, it is here's how you live.
Right.
And so we knew what to do and what not to do.
Right.
And we didn't question it until we got grown.
Yes, yeah, I get it. Now, from Nacogdoches, you finish high school,
I went to a two-room schoolhouse for 6 years.
Wow.
I had two teachers, two women teachers. My first 3 years, I was in one room. And when I graduated first grade, I just moved to the second row for the second
just
grade.
moved the desk.
And then when I graduated second grade, I moved to the third row.
Wow.
And then when I went to the fourth grade, I went across the folding door
Okay.
to the fourth grade teacher.
Wow.
And I did all of that for 6 years.
Wow.
And I guess the only thing that really got me over was my interest in reading. I was just curious about the whole world. So I would read everything.
Yeah.
And that kind of put me in sync with what the teachers wanted me to do. But we were still 2 years behind
Right.
the regular schools because we had to wait until those books were available for them
okay.
to bring them to us.
Okay. Okay.
And then we were able to then take the books from the white school, and then we would. So I actually didn't realize that I was really academically 2 years behind everybody else.
Wow.
And I didn't realize that was the case.
So for what I'm hearing you say you moved your desk up. You moved up a row.
I moved over a row.
Over a row.
A row.
Wow.
From the first grade to the second grade to the third grade, and then we crossed the folding door. It was a trailer.
Okay.
One of those long trailers, and we had six grades in that
Wow.
two-room schoolhouse.
How important was education during those times?
Now, being a student that would rather play than go to school,
Right.
My father made a proposition, and working in East Texas, it was the most backbreaking, hard work that you could ever do.
Yeah.
With the cotton, the corn,
Yeah.
with everything, with
Living off
all
the
of the machinery. It was really fertilizer. You had to carry the 100-pound bags of fertilizer on your back, and I'm only 16, 17, 15, and my whole desire was to get out of that.
Get out of that. Yeah.
And so my father said, I'll give you a choice. You go to school or you go to the fields and work. So that's why I love school.
I know you do.
It was
I
not-
knew you do.
It was
I know
not
you
that
do.
I was that crazy about school.
Yeah.
I just didn't want to go in the fields.
Wow.
So I stayed in school.
So tell me about this journey. How did you get to Southwestern Christian College?
I got to Southwestern. My father being a sharecropper, he shared land and crops with all the neighbors, especially the white neighbors around us within a 5-mile radius. And we would go and farm their land. And he would pay them a third of the produce for the right to farm their land. And there was one man that was very kind to us. He never really monitored what my father did. He would say, Mitch, my father's name is Mitch, whatever belongs to me, just drop it off. Whereas the other sharecroppers were there. They were measuring, making sure they got their portion and maybe a little more. And so this man was the fairest man that we'd ever encountered. And so when I got ready to graduate high school, he just came to me and said, where are you going to go to school? And I said, well, I have no clue. I have no idea. And he said, well, don't you want to go to college? And at that time, I picked up, I said, something's happening here, so I'm just going to go along with the program.
Right.
And I said, oh, yeah, I'd love to go to college. And somehow he said, I tell you what I'll do. I'll talk to your father, and if you go to the school that I choose for you, I'll make sure you get 2 years. And I said, it's done, just like that. And then he said, not only that, I will take you there. And he came and got my father and drove me to Terrell, Texas.
Was he a black man?
No, he's a white man.
Wow.
And dropped me off, took me to the president's office, and took me to the dean's office and say, I want you to take care of this boy. And that's how I got to Southwestern.
The providence of God.
The providence of God. Didn't realize this man was a Christian. And that was his way of really preaching to us.
Yeah.
And then I went back, and my mother was an avid reader. I think I got it from her. She would read everything. She would take the newspaper and read it 3 times.
Wow.
Over, just from, and she would listen to every, Paul Harvey. You remember him? No, you're too young.
Yeah, yeah.
1980s
1980s finest. Yeah.
And she would just stop everything and listen to him. But then I started reading what my mother read. And I started reading magazines like The Firm Foundation, The Christian Courier.
Okay.
And I noticed that these were magazines that had been subscribed and mailed to her. And I started reading them. And then that's when I determined that they were published by the Churches of Christ.
Okay.
And then I found out this man who helped me go to Southwestern never said anything about his church, was a member of the Church
Wow.
of Christ.
Wow.
And that's how I got to Southwestern.
By action and love.
By action, yes.
So that was your first introduction to the Churches of Christ then?
Yes.
Wow.
We owned all of our land, and so we grew up as Methodist, CME,
Okay.
Colored Methodist Episcopal Church.
Okay.
And they built a church in our neighborhood, and my father gave the land to build that church.
Wow.
And so my mother, we lived a mile away from the church, so we walked to church every Sunday. And that's how I started getting interested in
Right.
God and
Right.
religion,
Right.
things like that.
Wow.
And so that's how the providence of God started working in my life.
So wait a minute. Now, stop for station identification here. You are in Nacogdoches, Texas.
Yes. Actually, Nacogdoches is the town.
Right.
We live 13 miles outside of the town of Nacogdoches in a
Okay.
community that was all black.
Okay.
There was about 6 or 7 families that lived within a mile radius. Excuse me, and we were all related to each other.
Okay.
It was my family, my uncles and my aunts, and we all related, and we all owned our own land.
So you had to leave to marry somebody
Yeah,
because you would have married a cousin.
I did.
I just had to put that in there. Now, wait a minute. This is fascinating for me because a white man introduced you to an African-American college.
Yes,
Wow.
yeah.
Because a lot of people don't know that's my alma mater too, Southwestern Christian College in Terrell, Texas.
Right.
Let me speak to the millennials. That's where Jamie Foxx grew up. And, and that's where I went because I grew up COC, so we had our trail of ministers who would come through.
Yes,
And they would always say, you belong at Southwestern. And I didn't know what a Southwestern was.
I didn't either.
Wow. And so one day, this gracious, kind-hearted white man took you and your father to Terrell, Texas,
Right.
and paid for it,
He paid most of it.
most of it. Wow.
Yes.
Wow. How was that experience at Southwestern?
Oh, it was just a mind-boggling. It was a life-changing experience. I went to school with about 15 to 20 young men my age, and they were all preachers.
All preachers.
And
yeah.
I'm sitting here in awe looking at these guys. And I said, wow, this is amazing.
Right.
How could these guys be so articulate?
Yeah.
How could they quote scripture like that? How could they deliver messages? And I said, man. And so they would ask, well, what do you want to do when you graduate? I said, I want to be a lawyer. And one of the dean of women said, no, you can't be a lawyer. They lie. And so I believed her.
Right, right.
So I changed.
Wow.
And I went and I got a degree in speech.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow. Wow. And that's where I met you in early 2000, 2001, when I went to college. And, you know, I went there to be a preacher, but I got too intimidated because these guys were quoting books of Matthew, and I said, I can't be no preacher.
Yeah.
And so I didn't start preaching until I got here in Abilene. But when I met you, it was a lectureship at the time. And back then, when these guys walked in, they were stars. And so we, as ministerial students, 19, 20, 21, the young men who knew you, they would go down the line introducing me to each preacher in the back of GKF building. Oh yeah, he runs California. Oh yeah, he runs Florida. You know him, right? Oh, he's the big wig up in Detroit. And so I see this tall guy, articulate brother, never said much, and didn't know that years later I would be invited to your church to do a workshop. And you took me around LA. And there's a story about Gilligan's Island. We're going to get there.
Oh, you remember that?
Now, anybody remember, I know millennials, y'all will remember this, but Gilligan's Island, while they was taping the intro to that, you was there, walking on the island, the brother on the island. So I've been looking at Gilligan's Island intro, looking for the brother. I've been looking for you, Bill. So he witnessed them taping. He was just taking a walk in the stroll, and they was taping that. And so a year later,
Gilligan Island, when they were finally discovered and they were saved, they came into in their boat and they were rescued. I happened to be at Marina Del Rey when that boat came in, and I was with you, I think. And I said, that's Gilligan Island, and they have discovered, they have found them, they are now rescued, and now they're shooting the final scene.
Wow,
yes.
That is amazing.
It was.
Let's talk about the transition from Southwestern to Abilene. How did that come about?
Now, that's another story. It was very interesting, too, because I had a lot of catching up to do. And so a lot of those classmates of mine, they were really very helpful. And my last semester at Southwestern, the president happened to walk down out of his office. I happened to walk past, and he stopped. And his name was A.V. Isbell. And he said, Billy, what are you going to do now? And I said, I have no clue what I'm going to do. I'll probably go home, or I'll find another college to do. And he said, well, are you going to go to another school? And I said, I don't know. I might, if I can find one. He said, why don't you apply to Abilene Christian? And, without thinking, I said, apply to Abilene Christian? They won't let black folk in there. And that's what he said, well, why don't you try anyway? And hold on. A white man was telling you this? Yes. Okay, great. Okay, I just want us to see that. I just wanted to hear that. And so I obey my elders.
Right.
I'm the elder now, so.
Right, yeah.
I
obey.
Right. Whatever the older people would tell me to do, I just do it.
Yeah.
So I said, if you're telling me to do it. And so I filled out the application and sent it in and got accepted. That was it.
Abilene Christian.
Abilene Christian College.
And what year was this?
1962.
Wow.
Yes.
So tell me about the journey did you come directly from Terrell to Abilene, or?
No, I went home. Now, it's so interesting. I went back to Nacogdoches and spent the summer. Well, I worked for a summer in Terrell at a Blue Horse paper company.
Okay.
And earned some money. My mother made sure she took all the money. And so when I got there, a man came by my house and said, I understand that you are now going to enroll at Abilene Christian. And I said, yes, I got to find a way. And he says, well, I'm going there. If you want to go, I'll drive you.
A white man said this?
Yes.
A white man said this?
Yes.
Wow.
And I said, really? And he said, yes. Happened to be the cousin of the man that helped me to go to Southwestern.
Wow. That's a lot.
Yeah, they were related.
Okay.
And I said, and it took me years later. I said, I think somebody's been planning this all along.
Wow.
I said, I had nothing to do with this.
Yeah.
It was somebody else pulling the strings.
Yeah.
And years later, I felt like I was the robot. You know how they have those strings,
Yeah.
and they would pull the strings, and I would just follow it right along. And I didn't realize this man was a part of the agricultural department. I've forgotten his name. Here at the college.
Wow.
And the first came, I spent the night at his house, and he brought me over to the college the next day.
Wow.
Yeah. I can't think of his name, but I think the man that helped me to go to Southwestern was named Earl Hanna. I'll never forget him because he followed my career all the way through until he passed away.
Wow.
But the other man was a part of the faculty or the staff here at
Out
the
of the
college.
blue.
Yeah,
Out of the blue.
out of the blue.
And
Yeah.
said, you can ride with me to
And
Halloween.
and that's how I came here.
Wow.
Yes.
Now, let me ask you this, because this is very fascinating, especially during the time of the 1960s, before, during Jim Crow. And it was dangerous to be black and be a man. Quite
Even more dangerous then than it is now.
Wow. Yeah, because there was laws, there was laws. What made 19 or 20-year-old said, I'm going to trust God and come here? And not only that, but stay.
When I was growing up, I didn't realize how interested I was in the Bible. I would get up in the morning, and during the day, I would always take the Bible with me. My brothers and sisters thought I was the strangest one in the whole family.
With the Bible.
Yeah, they said they were out partying, they were doing what they did, they would earn their money and go and do all of that. But I would take mine and I would go back behind the house and sit down on the side of the and just read.
Read the Bible.
And when I ran out of the newspaper, when I ran out of books, I would take the Bible and I would read that.
Wow.
That was God introducing himself to me.
Wow.
And that's where I got mostly my conversion to him. And then in observing these men who treated my father with such fairness,
Yeah.
endeared me to them without thinking. It was some of the other guys. I would just, whatever you say.
Right.
But when these men spoke, it was like my father speaking. And so when they offered me this opportunity, without question,
Without question.
I took it.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
I didn't realize my father knew all the time.
Oh, he did?
Yeah,
Pop,
he knew.
Pop
Yes.
knew. Okay.
My father
Pop.
knew.
Wow.
And he only had sixth grade education. My father only went to the sixth grade.
Wow. So with that and that experience and that, to me, that, I don't care what you say, that makes you iconic in my eyes. The fact that you felt that there was a responsibility for the opportunity that was given you.
Yes, it was an opportunity, and I just had to take it because it was given to me.
Wow. Wow. With that, and we want to honor you because I recognize that there are many who have blazed a trail that will go unspoken in the archives of life. And so my question to you, what would you tell a present generation who may be a first of everything? What would Dr. Curl tell his 19-year-old self again, stepping out into the unknown?
I would tell the 19-year-old now, you got the best opportunity in the world. That if you don't shine,
Yeah.
I get angry. Because the opportunity for you to go to school, the opportunity for you to get a higher degree, is greater now than ever in the history of our lives.
Wow.
My father made $5 a day and raised a family. I grew up working on a farm, and I would get $10. My father would take half of it so that he would be able to do what he had to do, and just to survive. Now $5 is what I paid for a donut at the airport.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, that's the average cup of coffee at Starbucks.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I said, oh my goodness. So the opportunities that are available
Yeah.
to go to school,
Right.
there.
To
Yes.
be the first not only that, but you chose a university that was unlikely because most during that time, most people went to a HBCU, Historical Black College, and all that other stuff. But for you to step out of the rim and on the advice of somebody who was not black.
Yeah. And I did not do that to be the first. I didn't know I was the first.
Right.
I had an opportunity.
That was the responsibility with the opportunity.
And I took advantage of the opportunity.
Wow.
Not to blaze any trails. You know, I wasn't, and during my tenure here, they were always in the back of my mind. You're going to have to, you're going to have to do good. You're going to have to put up with some stuff. You're going to have to go through some stuff because look what they did for you. You know, and then being the first in my family to graduate from college was a milestone. So it was like setting the bar. And making my parents proud, and then making those men proud as well.
Wow.
So it was not done to integrate.
Right. That was never your
It
intention.
was never my intention. I didn't even know that was
A thing.
a thing.
Yeah. you just simply obeyed.
I obeyed.
Wow.
That's true.
Let's transition to ministry because how long you been preaching?
45, 50 years? 50
Wow.
years.
50 years.
50 years.
50 years.
By the way, I am 79 years old.
39?
79.
79. He looks
I'll
good.
be 80 years old on my next birthday.
Wow.
Yes.
Okay.
And I'm retired.
And retired.
I'm retired. I've been retired 7 years, and I enjoy it.
Have you really grown into enjoying it?
Oh, I love it.
They say preachers just can't be still.
Oh, no.
You out here.
I'm here because of you. And well, it's like I got a chance to shake the hand of the president and the chancellor. Then I get a chance to meet the basketball team.
Yes, sir. And that's at 2 o'clock tomorrow downstairs in the campus center. I made sure. He said, you know, I heard about your basketball team. Say less. I know where this is going. How long you been preaching in California?
I went to Crenshaw. When I left Abilene, I went to Africa. And I stayed in Africa for 6 years. I came back in 1970. In 71, I went to the Crenshaw Church. Now, let me give you a little insight how God is in this plan. I was called by the minister who was there, who was a white preacher. They wanted the black preacher to be a part of this movement. And the man that called me to ask me to come over and interview for this position was named Dr. Jack Scott. Dr. Jack Scott stayed 1 year. I became the full-time minister then after that and stayed until 7 years ago and built the church. Now let me tell you about Dr. Jack Scott. Dr. Jack Scott's wife's name was Lucreta. Lucreta is the daughter of A.V. Isbell, who was the president of Southwestern Christian College, who asked me to come to Abilene.
Do you ever get the feeling that somebody just tracking
Somebody
your
was pulling strings.
life? So all of these dots are connecting.
All the dots are connected, yes.
Now you ran through Africa real quick. Well, I'm gonna come back to it. How do you get where was this just was you doing missionary work or this is just
Yeah, I was a missionary work. Let me tell you, I think God is in the plan. And ironically, I have a degree. I got a degree in speech therapy, speech and language therapy. And so that was really made me really sensitive to handicapped children and things like that. So since I had the degree, there was a church in San Francisco, a black church that wanted to sponsor a full-time black missionary to Africa.
Wow.
And so they went across the country looking for somebody who had the degree that I had. And they found me here on campus. I didn't know them, but they knew me.
Wow.
And at the time, the vice president of the college, he passed away a few years ago. Don Morris was the president. He was the vice president. And he was the one who communicated with the church in San Francisco. Gave me a chance to go and visit with them. And they wrote me a letter and said, we would like for you to be a missionary to Africa. And when you graduate, I had already been contacted by a school district in Galveston, Texas. It was going to offer me a job as a speech therapist in Galveston, Texas.
Wow.
And I had met my fiance here, and we were going to get married in June. I think it was in June after I graduated. I got this letter from San Francisco said, if you get married sooner, we'll pay for your wedding, we'll pay for your honeymoon, and we'll send you to Africa. And so I went and told Mary, I didn't ask her to marry me. I said, I'm going to Africa. If you want to go, you can marry me.
I keep that in mind and give a woman an ultimatum.
Yeah, that's the way to do it, yeah. But she knew I didn't know how to do that.
Right. Wow.
And so that's how I got to Africa.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then after which you came back, you went to the Crenshaw Church.
I went to the Crenshaw Church. I also worked in the school district for 10 years.
Wow.
Because it was a very small church.
Yeah.
And I worked as a therapist for 10 years.
By
Then
vocation.
at the 10th year, I resigned and stayed full-time.
Wow. By
with the
vocation.
Crenshaw Church, yes.
Wow. That is amazing.
Yeah.
Now, I did visit you out there, and you gave me a historical nugget.
What?
You gave me a historical nugget.
I did?
Yeah. I was very interested in going to LA because I wanted to see the notorious parts of LA because I grew up in the hip hop era. And I just had to see the famous Jordan Downs in the famous movies. And Denzel made a movie, what's the
Training Day?
Training Day. And a few of the ministers that you've mentored that grew up in that area took me out there. And I'll never forget one of your church members came up to me and she was passionate about it. She said, you didn't come all the way down here to see the worst parts of us. You tell them to take you up to Hollywood. And so I wasn't interested in Hollywood. I wanted to see where it actually
You wanted to
happened.
see the hood.
But what happened was we were standing outside the church and you was reminiscing and you said the riots were on this street in 91, 92.
Right.
Rodney King during that era.
Right.
And they could have burned down the church as close the street was.
Right.
If you really look back,
Yes.
I just watched a documentary it's called LA 92 on Netflix. Probably one of the best documentaries I've seen on that time and what was going on. You also experienced growing up in LA, not growing up in LA, but ministering to LA during some really tough times of gang violence. How did all of that affect your ministry, and what did you learn during that time of working with people in crises?
Interesting. During the riots, especially the aftermath of the Rodney King debacle, I witnessed the mobs breaking and throwing Molotov cocktails, breaking windows. I stood there and watched that happen.
Wow.
There's a guy that used to preach with me. He's now at Langston University, Dr. Lawrence Murray.
Lawrence, yeah.
We were just driving down the street when the riots were taking place, and we said, 7-Eleven is going to go up next. And we would turn around and come back, and it was on fire.
Wow.
Then the gang situation got to be pretty bad. And so what we did is we went, and I had some members of our church who were gang interventionists.
Right.
And so we empowered them, and we made our church a sanctuary to where if you came to our church, no one would bother you. All you had to do was walk inside the building. So we had a reputation in the city of being a church that had a sanctuary, that if anybody, whether it was the Crips or the Bloods, could walk in, and no matter what happened, that you were safe when you're there.
Wow.
And that little skinny tall preacher won't let nothing happen to you.
Wow. Yeah. Tough dude from Nacogdoches. That's a tough brother. That's a tough brother. That's a tough brother.
And we've had a lot of gang funerals. at our church.
Really, and that's dangerous for a lot of people who don't understand gang culture because with gang culture, you have to carve out territories so they
Yes.
both won't cross.
Right.
And even at funerals can get violent, as we've been seeing.
Yes. And one funeral we had where the police had the SWAT teams had to surround our building within 500 or 600 yards, and only those who were part of the funeral could go in.
Wow.
Now, the policemen would not come into the building. Once they came into the building, their whole demeanor changed.
Mm-hmm.
They were super nice. They would have, one of their ways of honoring the dead is that they have a bottle of whiskey, but they would never touch it until the body came outside of the building. And when the body came outside, they would take the whiskey and pour it into the casket. But
Okay.
they wouldn't do it inside the building.
Y'all don't let them do it
That was
inside
the
the building?
sanctuary.
Okay, I was just checking. Just
Yeah.
wanted to know.
No, we wouldn't let them do it.
They didn't bring the bottle in either?
No, they brought, oh yes, they brought the bottle in.
They brought the bottle in?
Yeah, they
Okay,
brought the
okay.
bottle in.
Wow, y'all a progressive church.
Oh, yeah. They just couldn't drink it. They couldn't drink it. Yeah.
No, just communion. That's all it is. That's all it is. We're going to take a brief 5-minute intermission. Let's give Dr. Curl a round of applause. We're going to take a 5-minute intermission, and then we're going to welcome his great nephew, Rodney, up for a double interview. So don't go nowhere. If you need to use the restroom, get some water. Now's the time. We'll convene back here. I can't see the clock here. Let's do 7:20. Thank you, Cameron.
All right, we're good? Okay. That's all right. May I have some water? Can I have this?
Hello. If you're an ACU student and you want chapel credit, all of the interns have little badges, and there's some postings on the side panels. So, yeah.
Oh, no. It's not open till 4.
Maybe that should be
Okay. Good evening, all. My name is Shayden Lopez, and I'm one of the OMA ambassadors, and I have the great pleasure of introducing our second guest speaker this evening. Rodney Hawkins II is an Emmy-nominated journalist for CBS News, or National News, producing stories across the country. His latest news assignments include his personal journey restoring his family's 200-year-old cemetery, investigating the murder of Ahmaud Arbery, and reporting the tragic toll of the coronavirus pandemic. Rodney was formerly an associate producer based in New York for CBS This Morning, where he produced feature, breaking, and live news coverage. He also has prior experience as a digital journalist traveling the world for all CBS platforms and as a campaign embed reporter covering Vice President Joe Biden during the 2012 presidential election. Rodney graduated from Howard University with a degree in journalism and a minor in political science. He serves on the board of directors of the Emma Bowen Foundation and is an active member of Kappa Alpha Psi. Rodney resides in Dallas, Texas with his wife Marlo. Please give a warm welcome to Mr. Rodney Hawkins II.
All these generations over here. Welcome, man. First time in Abilene?
Yes.
Did you love the sights?
Yeah, I was telling when we were flying over, I'm like, it's greener than I expected.
That's a compliment for West Texas. That's a compliment. We're getting a lot of rain right now. Rodney, you have witnessed not only that, but you are in a bloodline of a historical family. To be one of the first. Is that pressure for Rodney, or you handle pressure just like he handled pressure?
I've learned that, right? When you grow up in it, you don't realize it, right? This is my everyday. I grew up, just listening to him share the stories of how we got the actual land. That was my summer vacations. I went to Big Mama's house and spent my summers there. And knowing that he went to college, my grandmother went to college, my mother and their generation, it was expected for me to go to college.
Wow.
And so those were the norms. Until I left that bubble, I realized, oh, it's not like that. And specifically, it's not like that for all Black Americans.
Right. Now, you grew up where?
In Plano, Texas.
Plano, Texas, so you're a Plano kid. Plano East?
Plano East, there you go.
Y'all all right. Y'all all right, Texas people, y'all all right. Now, out of that, you've made a very great leap to a historical Black college. Which one was that?
Howard University.
Howard University, so the famous Howard University.
There you go, yes.
Okay, tell me what that experience was like.
Man, it was incredible. I'll start with saying it was a complete 180 from my experience.
Really?
At Plano.
Okay.
Or in Plano, I should say, at Plano East. I grew up, the majority of my life, I was the only Black kid in most of my classes.
Okay.
Like a gifted and talented program. But my mom always put me in activities where I had teammates. I played football and basketball. But being so surrounded by that many Black people, it was actually like a culture shock you could imagine.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Even beyond that, it was seeing that diversity within the Black population.
Because we're not monolithic.
We are not at all. To the point where I didn't know there were French Black right? And Parisians, and what does that mean? International students from islands. To me, growing up in Texas, it was either you were black, white, or I used to say this all the time, you're not Latino, right? You're Mexican.
Right.
And so now we know that's not politically correct or correct at all. But that being said, you know, going to Howard, it was just this eye-opening experience of not only seeing blackness in so many different ways, but how many people were okay just being themselves, and they just happened to be black.
Right. Wow. And the shift from that is, you bragged to me one time that you are a Kappa Cane.
Kappa K. There we go.
Tell me about your historical fraternity there.
Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated, the Z chapter at Howard University. Man, that was an incredible experience too. I mean, what you see and where I am in my trajectory right now has all to do with me being a member of that fraternity.
Really?
In terms of who helped me get certain opportunities. And so I didn't see that as a student, right? I just saw, okay, here are the cool brothers that I want to be like.
Right.
Also have the swag and the academics behind it.
Wow.
I want to mimic that, and then that cultivated into more, and me developing, you know, a lifetime of brothers. And so where I am now, you know, is all to do not only with Howard and that experience, but also just being a member of the fraternity.
Wow. Let's talk about this career that you have had. Now, your great uncle, when I was talking to him to get him down here, he wouldn't stop bragging on you. And so, I'm like, what's this right now? He said, I want you to look up a CBS mini documentary that my nephew did. And he wouldn't let me off the phone until I looked it up on my computer.
Wow.
And I'm not going to say that I was at work because the president of the university is here. But I watched this 5-minute documentary and I was so impressed because this young man is going back and he's finding a lineage in his family. How important is that? And tell me, what have you learned from that?
Wow. Well, one, I just found myself, right? So all the superficialness of, you know, me going to Howard, how I grew up, my academics, really the core of it is being grounded in their experience and being able to accomplish and achieve from that. And so being able to document it and having the platform of CBS behind me to do it, it's just been incredible. And it's a journey that I realize is so beyond me at this point.
Wow.
I'm just almost like a vessel. I'm just like, point the camera there. Let me make sure I ask this question.
Right.
But it really was spawned, to be honest, out of someone challenging me to look into my history, considering how rich it was.
Wow. Who was that person?
That was, his name's Dr. Eric Dean. He's a professor. He's actually an epidemiologist at SMU. And I did a lot of work with him on the pandemic. We needed someone specifically to talk to us about how things were going with coronavirus.
Right.
He was our expert. And so outside of that, he was interested in finding his adopted son relatives who were from East Texas.
Okay.
So we randomly had a conversation about that, and he was so enthralled when I told him, well, both sides of my family are from Nacogdoches, rather East Texas, and then the other side of my family is from Marshall.
Yeah.
If you know your Texas history, those are the two towns that were first established in Texas, and the oldest. And as far as African American lineage, a lot of us come from those towns, and then we're dispersed elsewhere after slavery.
Wow.
And so when he found that out, and then I told him at the time, this was last summer, that my 106-year-old grandmother was still alive.
Wow.
God bless her, she passed away in October of 2020. But he said, you need to go interview her. He said, you know, that is a living archive in and of itself.
Right.
And then he's like, you need to go get her DNA.
Right.
And that started the rabbit hole.
Wow. Because
so-
my next question was going to ask you, what really motivated you to go to that route? Because a lot of us, and I think, especially in the African American community, where there was a time we archived our lives, but that language has been lost a little bit. And I think with us being that Joshua generation, as one generation transition from life to eternal, a lot of us don't have the tool set. So with that, what have you learned the most about your family that is surprising to you?
Wow, where do I begin? One, I mean, I was telling you just before you walked up just now, I'm still learning stories about my uncle, right? Like this is, living history. What has surprised me the most is how much we endured for us to be here at this point.
Wow.
And for example, and this is a different side of my family, and I believe this happened on both sides, including his father, but for us to have, and on each side of my family we have 150 acres, for us to have that amount of property, African Americans out of the enslaved experience,
Right.
and then going through Jim Crow,
Right.
I was, one, dumbfounded that we were able to keep it and still have it in our hands.
Yeah.
And two, like, how did you do it?
Right.
Well, to me, growing up in Plano, living in New York, I'm like, well, we were the sort of family that went along to get along, right?
Mhm.
Like, we said our yes sirs and no sirs. But there was a little bit of that, but more so, we had what I call our own defenses, right? You're not gonna take my property.
Wow.
I know one of my great-grandfathers, he was apparently in a battle with someone that was trying to buy his property, and he's like, I'm not selling. He didn't have any money at the time, right, to fight them in the county or what have you, but he told the sheriff, hey, if this person comes to my property again, I'm gonna shoot him.
Mm-hmm.
And he's all well within his right? And this is in, the Jim Crow era.
Right. Right.
And for him to say that, and then to have, like, the gall to be able to say that to the sheriff, I was
Back
like,
it up.
right, back it up, right? And we didn't hear anything about it, and we still have that land to
And you
this
should have
day.
that land. Yeah.
And so that has kind of bolstered me and given me the confidence that not only do we have things that we need to defend, but also that, it's our rights too.
Right. Yeah. Not only that, the ownership of that. Talk to me a little bit. How did you? It's black talk, right? I'm bringing up the black man. Brother, how you get connected with CBS?
That's a great question. It was by happenstance, to be honest.
No, I don't believe in that because your uncle already said divine intervention.
Well, no, let me tell you this story. So I am a serial intern.
Okay.
They fostered in the generation, my mom's generation, you work hard, right?
Right.
And so my parents were all about making sure that if I wasn't working, I was interning somewhere.
Right.
And at the time, I was looking for my sophomore internship, or actually, it was my junior internship. And I remember them saying, you need to find a paid internship, stop working for free.
That's true.
The only people that paid at the time, and this has all changed, right? Because now interns get paid wherever you go in TV, so let me make sure I say that. But then ABC was the only network at the time, when I was in DC, that was paying. And they had an open internship, and I was really into the military, to cover wars. So my eye was on going to the Pentagon. And they had a Pentagon opening, and I applied. I made it to like the third round of interviews, and this is my sophomore summer, and this is actually I would say this is like July then. And I get a call, and they're like, everything's going well. We're gonna have one more round of interviews with the actual team you're gonna be working with, and it's gonna go well. So I had that interview. It went well. This is June. Classes are gonna start, if I remember, in August, like mid-August. And I get a call, and they're like, well, we're so sorry. You made it all the way, and we decided to go with the other candidate.
Oh, that's tough.
And I'm like, what? What do you mean? And this is like they ripped the rug from under me.
Yeah.
And I'm one of those kids where I'm like, well, why? Like,
Yeah.
tell me so I can do better the next time.
Right.
And so they basically say, well, it was all scheduling. Your schedule was Tuesdays and Thursdays to intern, but we needed a Monday, Wednesday, and Friday intern. I was like, you've got to be kidding me.
Right.
And so I was like, well, I need an internship. I'm not about to go to school without, having this opportunity. So I just randomly started Googling, and I saw that CVS had their internship coordinator's email. And I just on a whim emailed her, Christine Dunn, I remember her name, and I think it was like a week. And mind you, this is a week before excuse me, it was 3 weeks before I was going to go to campus. Call her, or not call her, email her, cold email her. She responds and says, "Oh, you're a great candidate. All the experience you have would be great. Can you come and interview in 2 weeks?" And I was like, I'm not going up to DC from Texas for another 2 weeks or so. And so what ends up happening, I call my mom, like, I need to go to DC earlier. I'm just gonna drive. And I drive up, I go do the interview, expecting, I think I was like sleeping on someone's couch for that week just to make sure. And they give me the internship on the spot.
Hold on. Let me pause for station identification right here. And I want to point to my students in here. You saw something you want.
Yes,
You took a chance at it,
yes,
and you went after it.
yes, yes, yes. But that's what you did, right?
Hold on now. You saw something you want. You applied, took
Right.
a chance at it,
Yes,
with no money.
none. Well, you
A
know,
little
I'm
bit of
supporting
gas.
my, yeah,
Just a little bit.
my
Mama,
parents
can I
don't-
get it? $150, that's all you get.
Right,
Up
right,
there, slept on somebody's couch.
yes.
At a whim. By
Yeah.
faith. By faith.
And I
won't say
just called like a friend, I think I slept on one of my fraternity brothers' like couches.
Right.
Yeah,
And that's what it took.
yeah.
And came back home
Mm-hmm.
and was offered a job.
I didn't come back home, I just stayed up.
Y'all hear that?
Yeah. I was just,
I'm trying to help somebody around here. I really am.
I
I'm really
hear
trying to
you,
help somebody.
yeah. Well, I like sharing that for,
That's amazing to me. And I think following your passion in life causes one to take a risk. And a lot of people, and even I've been guilty of this, they get caught up in the law of familiarity. You know, I'm safe here. I don't know what lies out there. And so therefore I just stay with what I know. And there's a whole big world out there. I remember there's a story in the Bible where Jesus told the disciples, cast your net to the other side. And that's what you did. Now tell me, now you went to CVS, you went to DC with no money.
well, you're a college student.
Right.
Who has money as a college
Hold
student?
on, y'all listen. How you make it?
So I had a job, and this is crazy, like how I did this, but I needed clothes to work at the internship, and my parents were like, "We're not paying for you to have new clothes. Like, you got to
So
find
you were
clothes."
broke, destitute, naked, and all that.
I mean, I had clothes, but like professional clothes, like I
Professional clothes.
Yes.
So hold on. This is another thing. I don't want to keep interrupting. Because I believe nobody needs to come to college without a suit or a shirt and tie in the hard box.
I agree with that to an extent, but that's our generation, right?
I'm
So-
sorry, I don't think. Go ahead. I don't believe it.
But I actually, so one thing I'll say, I had cousins that were at Howard.
That's right.
So there was a roadmap for me when I got there.
There you go.
I went into the communication side. All my family went into the sciences.
Okay.
So one of my cousins is a doctor now, and she was a bio major. I think she was a junior at the time. And then I was right after them. So I kind of knew that there were resources, and one of those, they always worked at J. Crew. And so I asked them,
J. Crew, hold on. You got to help the older generation understand what J. Crew is.
okay, it's just a clothes, it's like,
Video clothing store with the
Yes.
pants falling off of you. and all
yeah,
that. I got you.
there you go.
Gotcha.
But they had this way for me to get clothes where I could just buy with employee discount.
Okay.
And so I was like, I'm gonna work there.
Don't say no more names.
All right, no more names.
Don't say no more names.
But I like being specific. I'm a journalist. That's
Right,
me.
right,
Facts.
right.
But anyway, that being said, I went to the internship dressed in the clothes that I was able to provide from that job.
Wow. That's awesome. That's awesome. CVS, you in Washington, D.C., going after your passion. How was that experience working at CVS? And were you the only black there, or how does that work?
No, there were several there at the time. It wasn't a lot, right? So I think I was one of two interns from Howard, and the rest were like from Georgetown, from all the IVs and et cetera. And so coming from an HBCU and then also being black, there was a little bit of insecurity there, right?
Right.
Like not only did I think I had to work twice as hard, but like 4 times as hard. So I practically slept there, except when I had to go to work in class, right? And then funny story on that, I convinced my communication journalism teachers and professors to allow me to skip their class to work at CBS.
Hold on. Now, you messed me up on this one. You got a credit for working.
Yes.
Y'all hear that?
Yeah, so they usually give you your internship credit your senior year, but I asked them, I was like, well, just give me 1 credit, and I'll do an internship to make it up for like 3, because I'll do it during the summer too. And I was able to like negotiate that between my professors and working at CBS.
Oh, you weren't playing right now.
No, but you see now, 10 years later, 11 years later now, I'm still at CBS.
Wow. So now fast forward, you are a producer.
Yes.
And a part of your great work now is that you've really been documenting your family's life and legacy. And you have put that on a national platform. Because I saw it. Just look up Rodney Hawkins, CBS. And Gayle King introduced you one time. This is Oprah's best friend, Gayle King. This ain't no anybody, Gayle King. This is Oprah's best friend, Gayle King. You see Oprah, you see Gayle. And it amazes me to know that your uncle is sitting right next to you out of a work ethic of persistence and perseverance. You have that, and you are where you are now.
Yeah, I mean, I'm the personification, I think, of what they manifested and what their parents did. That's a big question. At this point, I see our life and our experience as African Americans as the American experience. And again, I'm the vessel that is just showing it. Because one of the things for me, when I went to Howard, I got this wealth of knowledge on the African American experience of being black that I had never seen growing up in Texas.
Right.
And then that experience was, your Martin Luther Kings, your Rosa Parks, W.E.B. Du Bois, and many other leaders. But now understanding our story, all of us are a part of that history too.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
He was fighting the civil rights fight as much as anyone else during that time.
Yeah.
And so what I hope I do with my storytelling, specifically about our family, is that I show that this is an experience that we all have had together.
Yeah.
It's not just pockets of leaders.
Yeah.
We collectively are doing this and gotten to this moment.
Yeah. What is your goal with this documentary? What do you want people to walk away from this experience that you're sharing with the world?
I want them to see the American experience is, let me backtrack, that black people are not just a part of the American experience, we are the American experience as anything else. That apple pie, that bald eagle that you think of, we're right there as much as anyone else.
Yeah.
And although for some it's painful to understand that past,
Right.
for our white brothers and sisters, it's shameful to understand what happened and what their ancestors may have done to us.
Yes.
But we have to recognize that it happened.
Yeah.
And we're here in this moment.
Right.
And that's what I hope to take away. On the flip side, I hope anyone that watches this, whether they're black or white or any other race, sees this as an opportunity for them to reach out to their elders and understand the importance of what their ancestors did for them to be there.
Wow. You said something at that moment. What you just said is so important. And Doc, I want to bring you back in this conversation because I'm starting to see that there has been a language gap between 2 generations. With your experience, how can we bridge that better so that when one finishes the work in his or her life, he knows or she knows that it's their time to take the baton and go further. How do we close that gap between communication, between two generations?
You're talking to him.
I'm talking to you.
You know, it's really difficult because I'm really steeped in the tradition of my father, who worked to take care of his family. Number one, he took care of family first, and that was very critical. That was very important. We didn't have a lot of things, but we had family and we had food. I didn't realize that we ate well until I left home, because we raised our own food. We had everything that we needed except salt that we could buy from the store. My mother made everything. Another is to listen to the younger people, just listen to what they are experiencing. I have difficulty with my grandchildren because their fun is Xbox or TikTok or
The digital Babylon.
that.
Yeah.
And I have real problems with that because I used to work with my hands.
Yeah, yeah.
Now they work with the brain. I mean, it's more mental.
Right.
And so I like hanging out with Rodney because he teaches me a lot. I learn a lot from his experiences and what he does and how he treats his wife and how he handles his finances and
Yeah.
things like that.
By the way, Rodney, today is your anniversary.
It is,
And
yes.
so I pulled him away from a very important holiday for
I
the rest of
asked
his
first,
life.
so it wasn't as if I just
So-
hopped on the plane.
So we got to make sure we treat him right and send him back whole because he has somebody who he has to make up for this day of missing just to come see us and speak to us.
Yes.
Rodney, let me ask you this question. What would you tell your 19-year-old Rodney
Wow.
with the things you know now, with your experiences you know now?
Give yourself the grace to make mistakes and learn from them. I think I was, at that time, and I'm still learning this, it's okay to slip up every now and then. But it's the moments that you learn from that make you stronger.
Look for the lesson.
Look for the lesson. And don't be so caught up in fear of failing to stop you from doing it.
Wow.
And I know that was a part of, my issues when I was really young, is that I was so calculating in where I wanted to go that I made it to where I didn't make a mistake. And when I slipped, I fell hard, even though it wasn't that big of a deal.
Right, right.
And so the other thing is, now looking back, it's like, just be patient, right?
Hold on. Y'all hear that? Okay. Go ahead.
When I was 19, I thought I would be the reporter. I'm going to be doing out there. I said I wanted to be a war reporter. And now looking back on it, the 10 years of my career, the breadth of it, has built me to this moment to where I can be telling my family story in an authentic way.
Yeah.
And not in an opportunistic, like, this is my moment. This is happening and I'm doing it.
It's been the power of having the ability to narrate your story. And I think that's important. I think we live in a country, we live in a society now that everybody tells their part, which is a half-truth or a misunderstanding of it. But owning that reality, owning my life, not only that, but reaching back, and this is why this conversation is so important, and it transcends race and gender, is because it's a practice that many of us have lost, that we have the opportunity to pick up, because a lot of those who are in our families that have created a path out of no path are still with us.
Yes.
Wow. Thank you. Give Rodney a round of applause, please. So we can't leave without giving you something. So y'all come all the way at, brother, I know you're young. How long you been married, Rodney?
3 years. Today.
3 years, and he came out, he sacrificed his anniversary with his wife to come on out here to speak to us and tell her I said thank you. And so I'm gonna send her something too. Trust me, I'm gonna send her something too. And so Doc, my students has a presentation, so I'm gonna hand this over to, ain't the president, oh, come on, tell the people what you got.
In here, we just have a fancy OMA cup, a candle, and a little plaque that I made in the Maker's Lab.
It's so nice of you. Thank you. Very kind. Thank you.
Thank you for coming tonight. Thank you for coming tonight. In spite of a tornado watch, in spite of Cullen flooding out, I hope that there was something that was gained to encourage us in our personal life. Now, we've stopped a little early, so I want to take this time out, was one of my interns, is there any questions that you would like to address to Dr. Curl or Rodney at this time? Let's take about 3 questions. Clear as mud. Don't be ashamed. We got one.
I have a question for Rodney. As a young man and aspiring journalist, how did you focus, or what led you to be interested in covering war and the Pentagon?
Wow, that's a great question. That was, and don't get me wrong, I just remember this ABC report of, oh my gosh, what was the court, and you might not know this, the anchor. It was when we were invading, I can't remember, I think it was Korea, and this anchor was standing with all of the, I guess it was like the F-1s, and they flew over his head, and he's like, we're going to war, we're going to fight, and I just, in that moment, I was like, man, that's incredible to see, and to be able to document history, I wanted to be a part of that. And then the other side of it is, on my father's side, I'm the only person in my family that wasn't, or male, that wasn't in the military. And that was my way of possibly serving my country on the other side as a journalist. And so I think that had a lot to do with it as well. Can I say something about my uncle really quick? So part of my story too is how he has not only inspired me, but he was talking about the ropes and the strings that are being pulled. He pulled some of mine early on. And I don't want to shy away from when I was a sophomore at Howard. Actually, I think I was a freshman. And we had that Thanksgiving at his sister's, my great aunt, Ironell Maxey, at her house. He was going on his last trip to Africa, to Ethiopia. And this was going to be, at the time, right before he was going to retire. And I was like, man, I would love to go to Ethiopia. And he looked at me and just said, okay. Next thing I know, I'm back at school, and I get a call from my grandmother, okay, so we're starting to book your ticket to Ethiopia. Your Uncle Billy got it. And I'm like, what? And the idea was for me to document him going over there. That was my first real journalistic experience on my own. And so he started what I see now as giving me the courage to not only be a storyteller, but knowing that I can do it. So just thank you, Uncle Billy. From the bottom of my heart,
Uncle Billy, I want to go to Ethiopia. I think we have, if it's possible, do we have a video to show Billy's pictures? I almost forgot about this. Oh, wow. And so this is my first time working on iTunes and making pictures of anything, and thank God for Cameron. So a lot of his pictures. This is when, I'll let you narrate this one. They're behind us.
No, wait, that's you there.
No, they have. That's you and Aunt Mary.
Mary really, my wife is really from Abilene. So when I came to Abilene to go to school, I met her at 10th and Treadaway Church. And when we got ready to go to Africa, then that's where I wanted the pictures. And so in working with the deaf school, see that skinny kid on the right? That man in the middle is Emperor Haile Selassie. And so I had a chance to meet Haile Selassie and had all those pictures taken with him. The man on the left he's passed away. I forgot his name that quick. He was related to the preacher from the Uptown Church in San Francisco that sent us to Ethiopia. And he and his wife were working with us as missionaries in Ethiopia, and they both have passed away. So I had a chance to meet and talk with the Emperor Haile Selassie, the Emperor. Yeah, and when you talk about Emperor, I'm talking about the real power. I mean, he didn't have legislative power. He had dictatorial power. He could take life in a minute, and I saw him do it. And little man, Rodney is big compared to him. And he always had a Chihuahua in his hands, had 36 Rolls Royces. 36, yes. Those are the preachers that we trained when I was living in Ethiopia. All of those are preachers that are out in the country. And we went out and set up this Bible training school. And so all of those people, and the church where I used to preach, where we still support 42 of those churches. And we support those churches full time, those ministers. This is in Ethiopia. These are all Ethiopian preachers, and we support them full time. Mm-hmm. Yes. I didn't know you had that. I remember. By the way, then there are others. You could see we had a conference. We went over and had a meeting with the preachers in the churches, and they all came together. I built a school over there, and these are some of the students. I had the school for about 40 years, and so we graduated some 800 students every year. For about 40 years. And a lot of those students are now government officials, businessmen, ambassadors, and things like that. Mary and I went to visit the president, the House, not the president. He didn't want to see us. And so we're in Washington, D.C., yes. Mm-hmm. And that's my wife from Abilene. Yeah. My brothers, my oldest brother's on the left, my older brother, and both of them passed away. So I lost all of my brothers except the one on the left. He's the oldest one. He's about 86 years old now. Mm-hmm. He's still he lives in Los Angeles. And that's my dad's grave. I preached the funeral of everybody in my family that passed away except one brother. Yes, and that's my father's grave. Where'd you get those? I did? Oh, okay. My. And my mother, born in, she would say, her name is Ovi, O-V-A, and we would say, how old are you? I was born in 1904. That's all she would say. I was born in 1904. And my dad was born in 1890 something. Yes. Mm-hmm. This is behind the church building that my father gave the land to. Many of you know Fred Gray, who's a great, the lawyer for Martin Luther King. That's him on the the right side of me. Eugene Lawton, a preacher that I've known for years. And I keep forgetting the other names, man, but he was the president of Lincoln University. He has resigned. And also he was the president of Alabama A&M. Yes. I sent you that one too? Oh. Oh, it's over. By the way, I've been, he said 3 years, mine is 57 years. I've been married 57 years. Yeah. I can give you one little blurb on this conversation that the emperor was having with the man next to him. He was in charge of the organization that got him to come. And as we were walking out, he said, "I thought you were going to introduce me to the American." And he says, "That's him." He was pointing to me. "Yeah, that's him." He said, "No, no, no, he's one of us. I want to meet the American."
Well, it shows the fact that God can send you over there and you know how to talk the language with the people. And so for that, we thank you for being here tonight. We thank all of you for being here tonight. Give Dr. Curl and Rodney another round of applause. Thank you so much for our time together. Thank you, UCC Church of Christ. We appreciate you for letting us in here. You're all dismissed.
You're good. Yeah, that was good. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
If he, like, well,
This is my
Yeah. I like that. Yeah, I like that, brother. Yeah, we're gonna be clutch today. So Mason, you better clutch today. Hold on, let me get my P card back so I can do it.
Yeah, I see that. Whenever your name pops up, I go look for it. No, thanks for the recommendation. Good. He did good. I mean, people should have listened too. I'm the old man now. So my nephew, the one that's on the corner, where the house is, the museum. Yeah. There it is. And then the one in the Welcome Center on the wall. Thank you, my friend. Thank you. Enjoy tonight. Have a good dinner. I'll see you. All right. Where you Sort of for me, it's a combination of our 30th
you know, it's like, yeah, the only reason for existence is to link us.
Yeah,
You know, and that was